Hello everybody, Carl Keister here with ClearServe Financial Education. So today I'm going to be discussing the topic of buying versus leasing a car. And I know this comes up quite a bit and I want you to stay to the end because at the very end I'm going to go over my actual real life experiences. I've leased a car in the last year for the first time. So I'm going to compare that versus purchases I've made in the past to see what I've come up with in my analogy. But in the beginning I'm going to go through some definitions you need to know if you're going to go into the lease market, and also look at the advantages versus disadvantages. So please like and subscribe, and if you know anybody that would enjoy this, please share it. So let's get into it. So at first, this lease market, it used to be predominantly business owners and luxury automobiles, but now almost all companies are leasing, even the subcompacts, luxury SUVs, even pickup trucks. So I thought that was pretty interesting, but I looked it up. Experience, as stated, as of last year, it was roughly 30%. I pulled up 2020 numbers. It shows around 26% of new cars driven off the lot are being leased. So there's really, as I mentioned, no cut and dry answer for this. It depends on your preferences. If you like the new car smell every couple years, you like the latest technology. If you don't want to deal with maintenance and warranty issues because everything's under warranty, then leasing may work for you, but there's going to be some downsides too, and we'll get into that. So first and foremost, you're going to see that when you lease, the payment is generally lower, and the reason for that is you're basically only renting part of the vehicle cost. So when you buy it, you're paying the entire vehicle. You're going to be paying sales tax on the entire vehicle. You're going to have equity at the end of it when you go to trade-ins or something else. You're not restricted by mileage. All these things are just common sense. But so naturally, buying a car is going to be more expensive. Might have to take it out a few more years, but then at least at the end, the payments will stop. You'll get to a period at the end of the 4, 5, 6 years, whatever it may be. There's no more payments, and you now have equity, which is depreciating every day nonetheless, but you still have money towards your next lease or purchase. Now, what else you want to keep in mind here is sales tax. So when you go to buy, you're paying sales tax on the entire purchase. If you're leasing, you're only paying sales tax on that portion you're using or the portion that's depreciating, which I'll get into those definitions. Unless, of course, you live in one of the 5 states that have no sales tax: Alaska, Delaware, Montana, New Hampshire, and Oregon. So that could be a factor. In California, 7.25% sales tax could be pretty salty on a $50,000 car. That's an extra $3,500. But in Colorado, it could be as less as 2.9%. Just one of those other factors you want to keep in mind. But really, leasing is no more than renting a car long term. Most of us have gone out of state or gone somewhere on business where you got to rent a car and you rent it for that day or that week. Well, leasing is no more than that, as you're leasing it for 2-3 years. Most leases are around 3 years. So, but these leases are closed-end leases, which means at least when you enter into the contract, you'll know the residual value at the end of that lease. It won't change. So like I know at the end of the 3 years, if we want to buy the vehicle, I know exactly what we're going to be paying for it. And that's kind of comforting to know that anyway going in, but that's how they come into their cost and what you pay per month to lease the vehicle. So they pretty much take that cost, the capitalized cost, that's the first definition you need to know. The capitalized cost could be MSRP or the price that you negotiate. And then there's a residual cost, what the experts think is going to be worth when the lease is over. The amount in the middle, that's what you're paying for the lease. Plus there's fees, interest, maybe even origination charges in there as well. So they do pack in some of those fees and of course the interest. Now, the residual value that I mentioned, that really is what the car is going to be worth at the end. So if nothing else out of this video, if you get nothing else from this video, remember this: a residual that is a higher percent of the vehicle's cap cost is a good thing, while a low residual forces you to pay more while you're leasing the vehicle. So we know all depreciation varies. Vehicles, cars depreciate different than trucks. They're all different. So your best lease deal can be found on cars that depreciate the least and have the highest residual value. Now, where this comes into play is if a car holds its value more, you're paying less for that depreciation while you're driving it. And I know of examples of folks that when they went to go, the lease was up, they could actually purchase the vehicle for less than what it was worth. So the blue book on it might be $15,000, your residual might be 12. You could buy it and turn around and make $3,000 quickly if you wanted to, or you've got $3,000 equity more in that vehicle, so as it depreciates over the coming years, it's not going to hit you so hard so fast. So definitely want to keep that in mind. Okay, so let's get into the advantages versus a disadvantage. So the advantages, as I mentioned earlier, lower payment because you're not buying the entire vehicle. You have the latest technology with the newest gadgets, the lane change sensors and cameras and everything else that's on the newer vehicles. You have a warranty on the whole vehicle, and on my vehicle, even offer maintenance free. I believe it's maintenance free for 2 or 3 years. That's negotiable, by the way, too. When you're dealing with the dealership, you can negotiate. You want maintenance free for 1, 2, and even the entire lease if they want you in the car bad enough. So when you trade it in, it's easier too because they just take the car off your hands if you want it and you move into another lease. We talked about the sales tax, and you can get into it with a lower down payment. So interesting enough, there's a little piece here I'm going to read to you. At the end of the lease, you simply turn the car back in as long as you don't have you're not over on miles and you're not over on wear and tear. So I mentioned, I've heard of other people having trouble trading it in. If the tires are worn too much or brakes are worn, there's damage to the glass or panels, they can make you repair that, which then doesn't make it such a cheap rent or such a cheap lease, because now you've got to bring that car up to showroom standards so they can resell it. You want to keep that in mind. But you don't need to hassle over what the car is worth because that residual value is known from day one. So there's no hassle when you go to get rid of it. So now getting back to down payments, I thought this was interesting as well. When I did the research here, I found that there are some folks that want you to negotiate the least amount of money down when you're signing a lease. And their reasoning sounds pretty rational to me, and that is they think that the less money you put down is to your advantage because if the vehicle is totaled or it's stolen and you put down a significant amount of money on a lease, you don't get that back. You know, the gap insurance, hopefully the gap insurance to kick in, or in my example, the lease I have, the gap insurance is covered by the manufacturer. But so be careful putting down a lot of money on a lease because you could lose that if it's lost or totaled. Now, we talked about the advantages. Now let's talk about the disadvantages of leasing a vehicle. And there definitely are some. Number one, you don't own the vehicle. Number two, you're always going to have a payment. You're going to go from this lease to the next lease, and you're always going to have a car payment. No different than renting an apartment. You don't own anything. You don't have any. You don't get a refund to go into your next apartment. You don't get a refund or any other money back to go into your next vehicle. Limited miles. If you're one that drives, if you're on the road a lot, you put a lot of miles on there, leasing is not going to be a cheaper way to go because the cost they hit you with the additional miles cost is very substantial and it adds up very quickly. Again, I mentioned no trade-in value and the surprise cost when you go to turn it in. Other restrictions may come into play too, and that is a lot of them do not allow you to take the car across the border. So you may not be able to drive it to Canada, Mexico, or you might not be able to take a vehicle off-road. So you want to read that fine print because if you take it off-road, you may have violated the lease and you could have yourself a little bit of a problem there. As far as your credit score goes, I looked this up and Equifax says that only 8.5% of cars that were leased in, I guess this was a 2019 data, only 8.5% of those leased were subprime credit scores. So leasing, they want better credit scores because they don't want those vehicles coming back after they've been used for a few months. That's not going to help them at all. I mentioned gap insurance. Make sure that gap insurance, your manufacturer covers it. If not, you need to make sure that's covered so you could be out a lot of money in the beginning of a lease if you don't have the gap insurance. There's limited deals on the leasing. And like I said, you can't take it anywhere to get fixed. So if you want to have it repaired, most of the time under lease, you want to go back to the dealership because if you take it to a mom and pop shop and something's not manufactured OEM parts, that could cause a problem for you as well. And you need to have it in showroom shape when you turn it back in. So make sure it's clean, detailed. That's your best chance to turn it back in without any problems. And also keep in mind it's a lease. It's a binding contract. If you buy a car and a year or two down the road you lose hours, lose your job, you could always sell it. You could always, but trade it in for something cheaper, lower your payments. But when you're leasing, it's a little bit more difficult to get out of that. That's a binding contract. So keep that in mind as a disadvantage. Now, I do have one other thing I want to bring to you, and that is how do you compare leases? So if you're out there and you're shopping for this lease versus that lease. I'm going to walk through an example here, which I thought was pretty interesting to show you which is a better example. So let's take car number one, let's call it an SUV, $249 a month for 36 months. And they want you to put $24.99 down. So in this example, you want to take the $249 a month times 35 months. So you shave one payment off there. $249 times 35, and then add the down payment money, which is $24.99. Total cost of lease is $11,214. Vehicle number two, now it's the same 36-month lease, but it's $199, so $50 cheaper per month. But they want you to put down $34.99, so you're putting an extra $1,000 down, but your payment's $50 less a month. Going through the same math, $199 times 35 plus the $34.99 down payment, that gets a total cost of $10,464. So what that means is car number two is $750 cheaper. So that is the quick way for you to determine which is the better lease deal, is take that monthly payment times the number of payments you're paying, less one, plus the money down, compare them that way. Now, the final thing I want to talk about is my personal experience. I said I would go into that. And I thought this was pretty interesting because, as I mentioned in the beginning, I leased a vehicle in the last year for the first time. And so I'm going to look at our comparisons because in the past, I've only purchased one car brand new right out of college when I was an auditor, and I knew I was going to be driving a lot, and I wanted to have something reliable, and I definitely did not want to lease at that time. So that car I kept for 13 years. The next vehicle I bought after that was a vehicle that's only 1 year old, coming off lease actually, with 35,000 miles on it. When I look at the numbers of buying a car that was, and then the next car I bought was 7 years old. So I look at the car I bought 7 years old with higher mileage versus the 1 year old car with only 35,000 miles on it. That car cost me $1,800 a month versus the 7 year old car cost me $1,800 a year. Check that. $1,800 a year to own the 1 year old car versus $2,700 a year to buy the older car with higher miles on it. Now, currently, last year, within a month of each other, we bought a car, a luxury car, and we leased, I'm going to call it the everyday car. And so I'm looking at the numbers now just as a comparison. The car we bought, and obviously I've got 4 more years on that, versus only a 3-year lease, I'm coming up with about $500 cheaper per year to buy the car that was 3 years old with low miles versus leasing a car that was basically new, and I get the right to drive it for 3 years and then turn it in. So comparison wise, yeah, there's a couple more new gadgets on the leased vehicle, but the luxury vehicle, being 3 years old, has all the bells and whistles and then some more, and it's actually going to be cheaper. So anyway, that's my personal experience. So for me, the buy versus lease, I'll let you know in 2 years from now when I turn this lease in if I get in trouble turning it in. But right now, I'm leaning towards buying a vehicle that's 2 to 3 years old, lower miles, that's been well maintained, and I keep my vehicles for quite a while. As I said, I've kept vehicles for 7 years, 9 years, and 13 years. I know that's not typical, so if you're that real estate agent who wants a new car smell and you want to be see you in a new car for 2 to 3 years, then maybe leasing is good for you. But for me, I'm okay with buying a car that's a couple years old and keeping it and maintaining it. So that's it. That's my summary. So we'll see you on the next one. Take care.